She was never meant to be inside the Alpha arena. Not as a servant, not as prey, and certainly not as the one thing that could silence every Alpha in the kingdom. The arena itself was alive that night. Fire rose in towering pillars around the stone Colosseum, their flames twisting upward like restless spirits clawing at the sky. The air trembled with heat, thick with the scent of burning oil, iron, and something far older, something primal. Thousands filled the stands, their voices crashing together in waves of anticipation, hunger, and bloodlust. This was not a place for the unseen. This was where dominance was decided, where instincts ruled, where weakness did not survive. And yet, hidden behind a cracked stone column, pressed into the shadow where torchlight dared not linger, she stood, still, silent, trying not to exist. Her breath came shallow, uneven, as if even the sound of it might betray her. Her fingers curled into the rough surface of the pillar, grounding herself against the overwhelming force of the world just beyond her hiding place. She shouldn't be here. Every part of her knew it. Every story she had ever heard, whispered in servant quarters, murmured behind closed doors, had made that clear. The Alpha arena was sacred, forbidden, untouchable. Only warriors, only Alphas, only those who could stand under the weight of power without breaking. Not girls like her. Not servants who scrubbed blood from the stone after the crowds had gone home. Not someone who had spent her entire life mastering the art of being invisible. And yet, tonight, invisibility had failed her. A distant roar surged through the arena, louder now, sharper. The kind of sound that didn't just reach your ears but settled into your bones. They were entering, one by one, the Alphas. She didn't dare look. Not fully. Only a glance, just enough for her curiosity to betray her. Massive figures moved into the center of the arena, their presence shifting the very air around them. Bare skin glistened under firelight, marked with scars that told stories no one dared speak aloud. Their movements were controlled, deliberate, but beneath that control, something wild pulsed. Something waiting. Her pulse quickened. This was wrong. She needed to leave. Now. Before anyone noticed. Before. A horn sounded. Low. Deep. It cut through the chaos like a blade. And everything changed. The crowd quieted. Not completely, but enough that the shift was undeniable. Anticipation thickened. The kind that made the air heavy, charged with something close to reverence. Because he had arrived. She felt it before she saw him. That presence. That weight. It moved differently from the others. Not louder, not more aggressive, but undeniable. Like gravity itself had chosen a form and stepped into the arena. Slowly. Against her better judgment. Her eyes lifted. And there he was. At the center. Still. Unmoving. The Alpha King. Even from the shadows. Even from a distance, there was no mistaking him. He didn't need to assert dominance. He didn't need to prove anything. The arena bent around him. The other Alphas gave space without realizing it. The crowd held its breath without knowing why. And for a moment, just a moment, everything felt balanced, controlled, as if the world had aligned itself exactly as it was meant to be. Her grip tightened on the stone. This was her chance. While all eyes were on him, she could slip away, quietly, carefully, unnoticed. One step. That was all it would take. One. She moved. Barely. Just enough for her weight to shift against the stone. Just enough for her cloak to brush against itself. Just enough for something impossible to happen. It was small. So small she almost didn't notice it at first. A hesitation. A break in rhythm. One Alpha, mid-step, stilled. Completely. Her breath caught. No. No, that wasn't. Another one stopped. Then another. Like a ripple moving through water. Except this was not water. This was power. Predators. Men who did not hesitate. Men who did not pause. Men who did not stop. For anything. And yet, they had. The noise in the arena faltered. Not all at once. But enough. Enough that something felt wrong. Off. Like the world itself had taken a step out of alignment. Her heart slammed against her ribs. This wasn't because of her.
It couldn't be.
She hadn't done anything. She hadn't made a sound. She hadn't. The Alpha King moved. Not forward. Not toward another alpha. But still. Completely still. His head tilted. Just slightly. Like an animal catching something on the wind. And then, he inhaled.
Slow.
Deliberate. The kind of breath that wasn't just air, but recognition. Her stomach dropped.
No.
No. That wasn't possible. She pressed herself harder into the shadows, as if she could disappear into the stone itself, as if she could erase her presence from the world entirely. But it was too late, because the moment the scent reached them, the entire arena stopped breathing. Silence fell. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of something heavier. Something watching. Something waiting. Every alpha in the arena had gone still. Not confused. Not uncertain. Focused. The kind of focus that stripped away everything unnecessary until only instinct remained. And slowly, inevitably, heads began to turn. Not toward each other. Not toward the crowd. But outward. Searching. Tracking. Hunting. Her pulse pounded in her ears, drowning out everything else. They don't know. They can't know. They won't. The Alpha King's eyes lifted. And even across the distance, even through firelight and shadow, it felt like they found her. Not searching. Not guessing. Knowing. Her breath hitched. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up. A sharp step backward. A desperate instinct to run. To hide. To escape. Because something had just gone terribly, irreversibly wrong. And deep down, in a place she could not name, she already knew the truth. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't chance. This wasn't something that would pass. Because every alpha in that arena had just realized one thing. The scent was coming from her. And the next thing that happened had never happened in the history of the arena. The arena had always belonged to monsters. Not the kind whispered about in children's tales, no. These were real. They bled. They ruled. And every drop of blood that stained the stone beneath their feet, someone had to clean it. That someone was Lyra. Long before the fires were lit, before the crowds filled the stands, before the alphas stepped into the circle, Lyra existed in the hours no one cared to remember. The quiet hours. The aftermath. The part of the story that no one ever told. She moved through the arena when it was empty, when the echoes of violence still clung to the air like ghosts that refused to leave. The scent of iron lingered in the cracks of the stone, soaked so deeply into the ground that no amount of scrubbing could ever truly erase it. And still she tried. Kneeling at the center of the arena floor, her hands raw from cold water and rough cloth, she scrubbed at a stain that had already darkened into permanence. Back and forth.
Slow.
Methodical. Invisible. That was the rule. Not written. Not spoken aloud in the halls of power. But understood. Servants were not meant to exist in the presence of alphas. Not really. They were shadows. Necessary but unseen. Disposable but silent. Don't look up. The voice came from behind her.
Sharp. Low.
Familiar. Lyra didn't turn. She didn't need to. I wasn't, she replied quietly, her voice barely louder than the scrape of cloth against stone. Marta stepped closer, boots echoing faintly in the hollow arena. You always say that, Marta muttered. But one day you will. And that'll be the end of it. Lyra didn't answer, because they both knew it was true. Instead, she dipped the cloth back into the bucket, watching the water cloud darker with each pass. Blood didn't disappear. It spread. It thinned. It disguised itself as something less, but it never truly left. Much like her. Tonight's worse, Marta continued, lowering her voice as if the empty arena might still be listening. All the alphas are coming. Not just the usual ones. Lyra's hand slowed. Just for a moment. Why? She asked. Marta huffed softly, crouching beside her. You don't know? She said, almost amused. Of course you don't. You never listen when the others talk. Lyra's gaze stayed fixed on the stone. Listening was dangerous. Knowing too much was worse. Still, Why? She asked again. Marta leaned in slightly. They say it's a convergence, she whispered. A dominance gathering. Every major alpha. Every territory. Every bloodline. Lyra's chest tightened, though she kept her expression neutral. That's never happened before, she said. Exactly. Marta straightened, brushing dust from her hands. And you know what that means? Lyra didn't answer, because she already did. It meant tonight would be louder, bloodier, more dangerous. Marta's voice dropped again, quieter now. More guards. More rules. No mistakes. Her eyes flicked toward Lyra. Especially not from you. There was no cruelty in it. Just truth. Lyra nodded once. I know.
And she did.
She had always known. Lyra had been in the arena longer than most servants. Not because she was stronger. Not because she was better. But because she understood one thing better than anyone else. How to disappear. She moved without drawing attention. Spoke only when necessary. Never held eye contact longer than a breath. Never stepped into light unless she had to. It was survival, not skill. And it had kept her alive. So far. But there were things even invisibility couldn't hide. Small things. Strange things. Things no one ever spoke about directly. But noticed. Animals, for one. They didn't react to her the way they should. Horses shifted uneasily when she passed. Dogs went quiet, watching, not barking. Once the wolf brought in for training had refused to approach its handler. Its eyes had been fixed on her instead. Unblinking. Unnervingly still. Lyra had left before anyone could question it. She always left. Before things became noticeable. Before tension could settle. Because attention was dangerous. Stay unseen. The words had been drilled into her long ago. Not shouted. Not enforced with punishment. Just repeated. Over and over. By older servants. By guards. By the kind of people who understood how the world worked. Stay unseen. Always. Lyra had listened. She had built her life around it. And for years, it had worked. Until the night it didn't. It started as something small. It always did. A careless moment. A stupid decision. A game that wasn't meant to matter. The servant quarters were crowded that evening, filled with restless energy. The air buzzed with whispered conversations, speculation about the gathering, rumors layered on top of rumors until no one knew what was real anymore. Lyra sat near the edge of it all, as she always did, mending a tear in her sleeve. Listening, but not participating. You're too quiet, Marta said suddenly, dropping beside her. Lyra didn't look up. I talk when I need to. That's exactly the problem. Marta leaned back on her hands, glancing around the room. Tonight's special, she said. You can't just sit there like a ghost. I can, Lyra replied simply. Marta smirked. We'll see. The game started shortly after. Simple. Stupid. Dangerous. Whoever lost had to prove their nerve. And proving their nerve in a place like this meant breaking rules. Don't, Lyra said quietly when Marta explained it. Marta raised a brow. Scared. Lyra met her gaze briefly. Yes. The honesty caught Marta off guard. For a second, just a second, there was hesitation. Then the room laughed. Not cruelly. Just enough. Enough to make it a challenge. Enough to make backing out impossible. It's just the outer edge of the arena, someone said. You don't even have to go far. No one will see you. It's already starting. Everyone will be watching the center. Lyra's grip tightened on the fabric in her hands. They were right. That was the problem. They were right.
She didn't win.
And now, she was here. The arena was unrecognizable at night. What had once been empty stone was now alive with fire. Torches blazed along the walls, their light casting long, shifting shadows that seemed to move on their own. The stands were filling rapidly, bodies pressing together, voices rising in anticipation of what was to come. Lyra slipped in through a servant passage she knew too well. Her heart was already racing. This was a mistake. A massive one. She should turn back.
Now.
Before, a horn sounded in the distance.
Low. Summoning.
Too late. The The gates had begun to close. Her breath caught.
No.
No, no. She moved quickly, instinct taking over, slipping along the outer edge of the arena, keeping to the darkest spaces, the places where light didn't quite reach. Pillars. That was her best chance. Massive stone columns lined parts of the arena wall, remnants of older construction, rarely used now, but perfect for hiding. She reached one, pressed herself against it. Still, silent, invisible, just like she'd always been. Except, tonight, invisibility felt thinner, like something was shifting, something watching. The crowd roared as the first wave of alphas entered. The sound hit her like a physical force.
Loud.
Violent.
Alive.
Her pulse spiked. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. She shouldn't be here. She needed to leave. But her feet wouldn't move, because something deeper, something instinctive, held her in place, watching, waiting. The arena filled. More alphas. More presence. More pressure. The air itself seemed heavier, charged with something electric, something dangerous, something ready to break. Lyra pressed closer to the pillar, her breath shallow now, controlled, every movement calculated. Don't move. Don't be seen. Don't exist. The rules echoed in her mind. And for a moment, it almost worked. Almost.
Until the noise began to change.
Not louder. Not softer. Different. Shifting. Like something unseen had entered the space. Something that didn't belong. Her stomach tightened. Her fingers curled against the stone. And slowly, without meaning to, her gaze lifted. Toward the center. Toward the moment everything was building toward. Toward the place where power would collide. Where instinct would take over. Where nothing human would matter anymore. Then the first alpha stepped into the center. And everything changed. The arena did not simply fill with noise. It inhaled it, pulled it inward, let it build, and then it released it all at once. A roar tore through the Colosseum, raw and unrestrained, thousands of voices colliding into something that felt less like sound and more like force. It struck the stone walls, rebounded, multiplied, until even the air seemed to vibrate with it. Lyra felt it in her chest before she fully heard it. A pressure.
A weight.
As if the arena itself had come alive and she had stepped inside its lungs. She didn't move.
Couldn't.
Her back remained pressed against the cold pillar, fingers curled into the cracks of ancient stone as if it might anchor her to something solid, something real, something untouched by the rising storm around her. But nothing here was untouched.
Not tonight.
Firelight flickered across the arena floor, uneven and restless, casting the alphas in shifting gold and shadow. Their bodies moved within that light like something carved from both flesh and instinct, muscle tightening, shoulders rolling, breath steady but charged. They circled. Not in chaos. Not yet. This was something else. Measured. Deliberate. Predators testing the edges of each other's presence without committing to the strike. Lyra swallowed hard. She had seen fights before. Aftermaths. Broken bones. Blood that refused to wash away. But this was the moment before. The moment where everything still held. Where control existed.
Barely.
The scent reached her next. Metallic.
Sharp.
Layered over something deeper. Something older. It clung to the heat, carried by the rising currents of fire-warmed air, wrapping around her senses until breathing itself felt different. Thicker. Heavier. Her chest tightened. Too much. It was too much. The noise. The heat. The presence. Her instincts screamed at her to leave.
Now.
Before. A shadow moved.
Close.
Too close. Her breath caught. Footsteps approached from behind the pillar.
Slow.
Deliberate. Not rushed. Which made it worse. Lyra stilled completely, every muscle locking into place, even her breathing forced into silence. Don't move. Don't exist. The footsteps paused, right on the other side of the pillar. So close she could hear the faint shift of weight, the almost imperceptible exhale of someone standing just beyond her line of sight. A guard. It had to be. Her pulse pounded so loudly, she was certain it would give her away. Seconds stretched. Too long.
Too heavy.
Then, the footsteps moved on. Lyra didn't breathe. Not yet. Not until the sound faded completely into the noise of the arena. Only then did air rush back into her lungs, sharp and unsteady. Too close. That had been too close. Her grip tightened against the stone. You need to leave.
Now.
Before, the crowd surged again. Louder this time. More violent. Something was happening. Something important. Her eyes betrayed her. Again. Just a glance. Just enough to understand. The alphas had begun to spread out. Wider now. Creating space. Not for chaos. For something structured. Something ritualistic. The center of the arena cleared. Deliberately. Like a stage being prepared. Lyra's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a fight. This was something more. Something ceremonial. The realization settled cold and sharp in her chest. She wasn't just in danger. She was inside something sacred. A second horn sounded.
Shorter. Sharper.
The effect was immediate. The circling slowed. Then stopped. Not all at once, but in sequence.
1, 2,
3. Until the movement collapsed into stillness. The kind of stillness that wasn't calm, but waiting. Lyra felt it ripple through the air. That shift. That tightening. As if every instinct in the arena had just drawn inward, preparing. For what? She didn't know. But her body reacted anyway. Her breathing shallowed. Her pulse spiked. Her senses sharpened without her permission. Because something was coming. Something bigger than what she had already seen. The crowd quieted again. Not completely, but enough. Enough that the difference was unmistakable. Anticipation. Heavy.
Charged.
Waiting. And then, he entered. There was no announcement. No grand declaration. No need. Because the moment he stepped into the arena, everything adjusted.
Subtly.
Instinctively. The alphas nearest to the center shifted first. Not stepping back, but giving space. Without realizing it. Without choosing it. Their bodies reacted before their minds could catch up. Lyra felt it too. That change. That pressure. Different from the others. He didn't carry his power like a weapon.
Didn't display it. Didn't force it outward.
It simply existed. And everything else moved around it. He walked slowly. Unhurried. Each step deliberate, grounded, controlled. As if time itself bent slightly to accommodate him. His shoulders were relaxed. His breathing even. There was no visible tension in him, which made him more dangerous than any of the others. Because while they strained against their instincts, he held his. Perfectly. Lyra's chest tightened. She shouldn't be looking at him. She knew that. But something deeper, kept her gaze fixed. Just for a second longer. Just enough to understand. This was the Alpha King. He reached the center. Stopped. And, for a moment, nothing happened. No movement. No sound. Just presence. Heavy. Absolute. Final. Then the others responded. Not with submission. Not openly. But with something close to it. A shift in posture. A tightening of space. An acknowledgement that didn't need words. Lyra exhaled slowly, barely aware she had been holding her breath. This was it. The moment everything had been building toward. The point where instinct would take over. Where control would slip. Where violence would become inevitable. She needed to leave. Now. Before it started. Before. A flicker of movement caught her attention. To her left. Another shadow. Another presence. Closer than before. Her heart jolted. Not again. A figure passed between the pillars, scanning the edges of the arena. A guard. This one slower. More thorough. Lyra pressed herself tighter against the stone, her body folding inward, shrinking, reducing itself to the smallest possible shape. Invisible. Be nothing. Be nothing. The guard paused. Turned. His gaze sweeping the shadows. Her breath stopped. Completely. The silence stretched. Heavy. Unforgiving. Then, he moved on. Again. Lyra's body didn't relax. Not fully, because the tension hadn't left. It had only shifted, back to the center, where everything was about to begin. The Alpha King lifted his head, just slightly. The motion was small, controlled, but it triggered something, a response. The nearest Alpha stepped forward, then another, then a third. The formation tightened. The circle closed. The ritual had begun. Lyra felt it immediately. That shift. The loss of restraint. Not fully. Not yet. But enough. Enough that the air itself seemed to crackle with it. The Alphas moved differently now. Less controlled. More instinctive. Their breathing deepened. Their shoulders tensed. Their focus sharpened into something narrower. Something dangerous. The first clash was inevitable. Lyra knew it. They all did. It was seconds away. Her fingers dug into the stone. You need to leave.
Now.
This is your last chance. Move. But she didn't. Because something else happened first. Something small. Something so subtle that if she had blinked, she might have missed it. One Alpha, mid-step,
Stopped. Completely.
It shouldn't have mattered. One Alpha pausing mid-step, in a place like this, meant nothing. Fight stalled. Movements shifted. Instinct recalibrated.
It happened.
All the time. But this was different. Because he didn't adjust. He didn't recover. He didn't continue. He stopped. Completely. As if something invisible had reached out and taken hold of him. At first, no one reacted. Not the crowd. Not the other Alphas. Because the moment was too small. Too subtle. Too easy to miss. But then, another Alpha faltered. This one was closer to the center. Mid-turn. His body twisted slightly, as if caught between two decisions. Attack. Or retreat. And then, he froze. The shift was sharper this time. More noticeable. A ripple beginning to form. Lyra felt it before she understood it. A tightening in the air. A strange hesitation that didn't belong in a place like this. Her fingers curled harder into the stone. No. Something was wrong. A third Alpha stopped. Then a fourth. And suddenly, it wasn't subtle anymore. The movement in the arena began to collapse. Not all at once, but in pieces. Fragments of motion breaking apart until what remained was stillness. The crowd noticed next. The roar faltered. Voices dipped. Confusion spread like a slow-moving wave through the stands. Because this had never happened before. Lyra's breath caught. Her chest tightened. Her mind scrambled for explanation. For logic. For anything that could make sense of what she was seeing. This isn't real. This isn't supposed to happen. They should be fighting. They should be moving. They should be... But they weren't. They were standing still. Every single one of them. The sound changed. Not gone. But altered. Stripped down. The chaos drained away until all that remained was something raw. Something close. Something intimate. Breathing. Hundreds of bodies. Thousands of lungs. Inhaling. Exhaling. The rhythm uneven. Uncontrolled. Animal. Lyra's pulse pounded in her ears. Too loud. Too fast. She couldn't hear anything else. Not clearly. Not fully. Just fragments. Broken pieces of a world that had suddenly lost its shape. What is happening? The voice came from somewhere in the stands. Barely above a whisper. But it carried. Because the arena had gone quiet enough that even fear could be heard. No one answered. Because no one knew. Not even him. The Alpha King moved. It was small. A shift of weight. A slight tilt of his head. But in a place where everything had stopped, even the smallest movement became impossible to ignore. Lyra felt it like a pull. Her gaze dragged back toward the center before she could stop it. He wasn't looking at the others. Not anymore. He wasn't watching the formation. Wasn't assessing the fight. Wasn't preparing. He was listening.
No.
Not listening. Sensing. His chest rose slowly. A breath drawn in. Deep. Deliberate. As if the air itself held something worth noticing. Lyra's stomach dropped, a cold realization beginning to form before her mind could fully grasp it.
No.
Around him, the other alphas shifted, not into motion, but into awareness. Heads lifted, slowly, one by one. Eyes sharpened, focused. The stillness changed. Not empty anymore. Not waiting. Searching. Lyra's breath turned shallow. Her body instinctively pressed further into the pillar, as if she could melt into it, disappear into the stone, erase her presence from the world entirely. They don't know. They can't know. This isn't about you. It can't be. But her body didn't believe it. Her instincts, the same ones that had kept her alive all this time, were screaming.
Run.
Her legs didn't move. Because something held her there. Not physically. Not visibly. But deeper. Something that felt like inevitability. Like gravity shifting. And pulling everything toward a single point. The alphas began to turn. Not toward each other. Outward. Toward the edges of the arena. Toward the shadows. Toward her. Her pulse slammed against her ribs.
No.
No. One step. That's all it would take. One step back. One movement. One chance to escape before. An alpha near the outer ring inhaled sharply. The sound cut through the silence like a blade. His head snapped to the side. Eyes narrowing. Fixing. On her direction. Another followed. Then another. Then another. It spread faster now. Not hesitation. Not confusion. Recognition. Something ancient. Something instinctive. Something that didn't need explanation. The crowd shifted again. Uneasy now. Whispers rising. Fear creeping into places where excitement had lived moments before. Because predators were not supposed to behave like this. Predators were not supposed to search. Lyra's throat tightened. Her lungs burned. She hadn't realized she'd stopped breathing.
Move.
Move now. But her body refused. Frozen.
Just like them.
Because now, it was undeniable. Every alpha in the arena was facing outward. Every gaze scanning. Every instinct locked onto something unseen, but undeniable. The Alpha King took a step forward. Not toward the center.
Toward the edge. Toward her.
Lyra's heart stuttered. Time stretched.
Slowed.
Fractured into pieces that no longer moved in sequence. He inhaled again. Slower this time.
Deeper.
As if confirming something he already knew. His eyes lifted. And even across the distance, even through firelight, shadow, and chaos unraveling, it felt like they found her. Not searching. Not guessing. Knowing. Her breath broke. A sharp inhale. She couldn't stop. Her body reacting before her mind could catch up. A small movement. Barely anything. But enough. Enough for the illusion to shatter. Because in that moment, every instinct in that arena aligned. Every predator, every alpha, every force of power that ruled this world, focused on one single truth. The scent. The one that did not belong. The one that had stopped them. The one that had broken something ancient. Was hers. And suddenly, the silence wasn't confusion anymore. It was anticipation. Because every alpha in the arena had just realized one thing. The scent was coming from her. For one suspended second. No one moved. Not the alphas. Not the crowd. Not even her. Because when every predator in the arena turned toward a single point, the world didn't react. It held its breath. Then Lyra ran. It wasn't a decision. It wasn't thought. It was instinct.
Raw.
Immediate. Unquestioned. Her body moved before her mind could catch up, feet pushing off the stone, breath tearing from her lungs as she broke from the shadow of the pillar and into motion. And the moment she did, the arena exploded. Sound came back all at once. Violent. Chaotic. Uncontained. The crowd surged into noise, shouts, confusion, rising panic, but it was drowned out by something deeper. Something closer. Something far more dangerous. Movement. The Alphas moved. Not in formation. Not in ritual. Not with discipline. But with instinct. Lyra didn't look back. She couldn't. Her focus narrowed to one thing. Escape. The outer corridors. The servant passages. The narrow spaces where bodies like hers could disappear. Her feet struck the stone hard, uneven, slipping slightly as she cut across the edge of the arena floor, weaving between pillars, shadows, anything that might hide her for just one more second. A roar tore through the space behind her.
Low. Deep.
Not human. It hit her spine like a shockwave. Her breath hitched. Her pace faltered, just for a fraction of a second.
Too long.
Because the sound wasn't rage. It wasn't the sound of a predator chasing prey. It was something else. Something older. Something that made her stomach twist with a feeling she didn't understand. Recognition. No. The word barely left her lips before she pushed forward again. Faster now. Harder. Her lungs burning. Her heartbeat erratic, uneven. This isn't right. They should be fighting each other. They should be. But they weren't. Because behind her, they weren't attacking. They were following. Lyra reached the archway that led into the lower corridors, slipping through the narrow opening just as the chaos spilled fully into motion behind her. Stone walls closed in around her, the roar of the arena muting into echoes, footsteps pounding in the distance. Too many footsteps. Her chest tightened.
No.
No. She turned sharply down a side passage, her shoulder brushing rough stone, pain flaring briefly before adrenaline swallowed it whole. Keep moving. Don't stop. Don't let them. A shadow dropped in front of her. She skidded back, breath snapping in her throat.
A guard.
His eyes widened, confusion flashing across his face as he took in the sight of her. A servant, running. From the arena. What are you? He didn't finish. Because the sound came again. Closer. And, this time, he felt it too. His body stiffened. His gaze shifted past her. Toward the corridor behind. Toward them. Lyra didn't wait. She moved. Slipping past him in the second his focus broke, her body twisting through the narrow space, heart slamming as she ran deeper into the maze of corridors she knew better than anyone. But even as she ran, something didn't feel right. The chase was wrong. There was no clash of bodies, no sounds of fighting, no snarls of competition. Just footsteps. Relentless. Measured. Following. Her breath stuttered. That doesn't make sense. They should be tearing each other apart. Fighting for dominance. For position. But they weren't. They were moving together. Toward her. A cold realization slid into place. Heavy. Unavoidable. This wasn't a hunt. It was a convergence. Lyra stumbled slightly as she turned another corner, her hand catching the wall to steady herself, her lungs burning, her vision narrowing at the edges. Too fast. Too much. She couldn't keep this pace. A new sound cut through the corridor. Not footsteps. Authority. Stop. Guards. Multiple this time. Ahead of her. Her heart dropped. Trapped. She slowed, just enough to see them clearly. Armed. Blocking the passage. Their expressions hard. Ready. But then, something changed. Not in her. In them. They felt it. That same shift. That same presence. Their bodies tensed. Not at her. At what was coming behind her. One of them stepped forward, jaw tightening. What in the... And then, he saw him. The Alpha King. He didn't enter the corridor like a man. He entered like something that had chosen a direction, and would not be stopped. His pace wasn't rushed, wasn't frantic, but it was absolute. The guards reacted instantly, stepping into formation, blocking the corridor. Your Majesty. He didn't slow. The arena protocol. He didn't stop. The ritual is not complete. He moved forward anyway, The air shifted. Pressure built. The kind that made lungs tighten and instincts scream. Stand aside. His voice was low, controlled, but beneath it, something else moved. Something deeper. Something that didn't ask. The guards hesitated. Just for a second. Enough. Because the next step he took was not human. It wasn't visible, not fully, but it was felt. A shift, a break, a line crossed. The nearest guard reached for him. Instinct, training, duty. His hand never made contact. Because something in the Alpha King snapped. Not outward. Inward. A fracture in control. A slip in restraint. And, in that moment, the truth surfaced. This wasn't pursuit. This wasn't curiosity. This wasn't even anger. This was instinct.
Pure.
Ancient. Uncontested. His wolf had surfaced. And it wasn't reacting to prey. It was reacting to something else. Something that made Lyra's breath catch even as she stood frozen at the far end of the corridor. Something that made the guards step back. Not because they chose to, but because their bodies refused to stand in the way of it. Move. This time, it wasn't a command. It was inevitability. And they obeyed. Lyra stared, her chest rising and falling too fast, her thoughts scrambling, breaking apart, failing to form anything coherent, because now, she understood. Not fully, but enough. This wasn't normal. This wasn't human. And whatever it was, whatever had caused the entire arena to stop, whatever had pulled every alpha toward her, it was inside her. Her scent. The realization hit hard, sharp, cold. This isn't human. Her stomach twisted. Her pulse spiked. Her breath came shallow, uneven. Because the way they were reacting, the way he was reacting, it wasn't aggression. It wasn't violence. It was something worse. Something deeper. Something that didn't destroy. It claimed. Lyra took a step back. Then another. Her body trying to create distance. Space. Something. Anything. But it didn't matter. Because he was already moving again. Toward her. Not rushing. Not hesitating. Certain. And in his eyes, there was no confusion. No question. Only recognition. Her breath hitched. Her body stilled. Her instincts screaming.
Run.
Run now. Run. But something held her in place. Because in that moment, in that narrow corridor, with stone walls closing in and the weight of something ancient pressing down on both of them, the truth became unavoidable. He wasn't chasing her to kill her. He was chasing her because his wolf had already chosen her. The forest did not welcome them. It swallowed them. The moment Lyra crossed the final threshold of stone and shadow, the world changed. The suffocating heat of the arena vanished, replaced by something colder, quieter. The air shifted, thick with damp earth and the faint rustle of leaves that whispered secrets to no one and nothing. Darkness stretched between the trees, broken only by slivers of pale moonlight cutting through the canopy above. The ground beneath her feet softened, dirt, roots, uneven terrain, forcing her pace to falter, her breath to stutter, as the frantic rhythm of her escape finally began to crack. She stumbled forward, caught herself, kept moving, but the noise, the chaos, the relentless pressure that had driven her forward, it was gone, and in its place was silence. Not empty. Watching. Her steps slowed, just slightly, just enough for the world to catch up with her. Her lungs burned. Her heart pounded so violently it felt like it might break through her ribs. But something else, something deeper, was beginning to surface beneath the panic. Awareness. She wasn't being chased the way she should have been. No crashing through trees. No violent pursuit. No snapping branches or snarling breath at her back. Just presence. Close. Steady. Unavoidable. Lyra stopped. The decision came without permission. Her body simply refused to move another step. Her chest rose and fell sharply as she stood there, surrounded by darkness, her senses straining, listening, waiting. And then, she felt him. Not heard, not seen.
Felt.
A shift in the air. A weight pressing into the space behind her. The kind of presence that didn't announce itself, because it didn't need to. Her breath caught. Slowly, carefully, she turned. He stood at the edge of the clearing.
Still.
Unmoving. Watching her. The distance between them wasn't far. Not far enough. Not safe enough. Moonlight brushed against him, catching on the sharp lines of his frame, outlining him in silver and shadow. He didn't look like he had just broken through a guarded arena. Didn't look like a man who had defied rules, hierarchy, control. He looked composed. Too composed. And that was what made him dangerous. Lyra took a step back. Instinct.
Distance.
Survival. Don't. The word was quiet.
Low.
But it didn't sound like a command. It sounded like a warning. Her body reacted anyway. Another step back. Her pulse racing again, panic flickering at the edges of her control. Her voice faltered. I wasn't supposed to be there. The words spilled out too fast, uneven, breaking over themselves in their attempt to explain something that couldn't be explained. Because nothing about this made sense. Nothing about him made sense. He didn't move. Not yet. His gaze remained fixed on her, steady, unblinking, as if every shift in her breathing, every flicker of her expression, every micro-movement mattered. You shouldn't exist there, he said. Not accusing. Not angry.
Certain.
Lyra swallowed hard. I know, she whispered. Her fingers curled slightly at her sides, grounding herself, trying to hold onto something familiar. Something normal. I didn't mean to stay. I needed to leave, and then it started and I couldn't. You didn't leave. The interruption was soft, but it landed heavy. Her words stopped. Because he was right. She hadn't left. Something in her chest tightened. Not fear. Not entirely. Something else. Something she didn't want to name. I couldn't, she said again, quieter now. Honest. Silence followed. But it wasn't empty. It stretched, shifted,
changed.
Because now, he was moving. Slowly. One step. Then another. Closing the distance. Lyra's breath hitched. Her instincts screamed at her to move, to run, to put space between them. But her body betrayed her again. She stayed. Frozen in place as he approached. Every step he took felt deliberate, measured, not rushed, not aggressive.
Certain.
And with every inch of distance that disappeared, something inside her shifted. Her pulse didn't just race. It changed.
Faster.
Sharper. More aware. Her breathing turned uneven. Not from exhaustion, but from something else. Something she didn't understand. He stopped just short of her. Close enough that the space between them felt fragile.
Thin.
Like it could break with the smallest movement. Lyra forced herself to meet his gaze. Just for a second. Just enough, and immediately regretted it. Because there was something there. Not anger. Not confusion. Recognition.
Deep.
Unshakable. Her chest tightened. This doesn't make sense, she whispered, more to herself than to him. His head tilted slightly, studying her. Not her face. Not her expression. Her. As if he were trying to understand something that didn't fit into the world he knew. It doesn't have to, he said. Her breath caught. What does that even mean? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer. Close enough now that she could feel the heat of him, the steady rise and fall of his breath, the presence of something just beneath the surface, something controlled, but not contained. Her body reacted before her mind could stop it. A sharp inhale, a step back. But his hand moved. Not fast, not forceful, just enough. fingers brushing her wrist. The contact was light, barely there.
But it hit like impact.
Lyra froze. Her breath stopped. Her thoughts scattered. Because the moment he touched her, everything changed. The world didn't disappear. It sharpened. Every sensation heightened.
The air.
The ground beneath her feet. The rhythm of his breath. And hers. Too close. Too much. She should pull away. She needed to pull away. But she didn't. Because something held her there. Not him. Something deeper. Something that responded.
To him.
His fingers tightened slightly. Not enough to hurt. Just enough to confirm. She was real. His jaw tensed. For the first time, control slipped. Not visibly. But in the way his breath changed. In the way his gaze darkened. In the way something beneath his calm surface shifted. My wolf. The words were low, rougher now, less controlled. Lyra's pulse spiked. My wolf stopped the entire arena. He exhaled slowly, as if the truth itself weighed something. For you. Silence followed. But it wasn't empty.
It was charged.
Because the meaning, the implication, the impossibility of it, settled between them like something alive. Lyra shook her head.
Once.
Then again. No, she whispered. That's not possible. But her voice lacked conviction. Because her body already knew. She had felt it. That moment. That silence. That shift. And now, standing this close, feeling him, it made sense. Too much sense. This doesn't happen, she said again, softer now. Not to someone like me. His gaze didn't waver. It doesn't happen, he agreed. A pause. A breath. Until it does. Her chest tightened. Her mind racing, trying to find logic, reason, something solid to hold on to. But there was none. Only this. This moment. This impossible connection. His hand was still on her wrist.
Warm. Steady.
Grounding. And dangerous. Lyra finally moved. Not away. But forward. Just slightly. Just enough. That the distance between them disappeared completely. Her breath brushed against his. The space between them.
Gone.
And for a moment, neither of them moved. Not because they didn't want to, but because something deeper held them there. Balanced on the edge of something neither of them fully understood. Attraction. Danger. Dominance.
Choice.
His fingers shifted slightly. Not pulling. Not holding.
Just there.
And his voice, when it came again, was quieter. Lower. Closer. Do you feel it? Lyra didn't answer. Because she did. She felt everything. Too much. Too clearly.
And it terrified her.
Because if she admitted it, even to herself, there would be no going back. His gaze didn't leave hers.
Didn't soften.
Didn't waver. It deepened. As if he already knew the answer. As if the question was never meant to be answered aloud. Only understood. His thumb shifted slightly against her wrist. A subtle movement. A grounding one. And then,
he spoke again.
Do you think you can disappear again? A pause. Not long, but long enough for the weight of the words to settle, for the truth behind them to take shape. Now that I've found you, the forest did not keep secrets for long. Not in a world ruled by scent, instinct, and power. What happened in the arena, what followed into the trees, what should have remained hidden in shadow,
spread fast.
By dawn, the kingdom already knew something was wrong. Not the full truth. Not yet, but enough. Enough for unease to settle into places where certainty had once lived. Enough for whispers to move through corridors carved from stone and authority. Enough for power to react. The council chamber was built for control.
High ceilings.
Cold marble. Long shadows that stretched beneath pillars older than most bloodlines seated within them. Nothing in that room was accidental. Every detail existed to remind those inside it, who held power. And yet, that morning, power felt unsettled. They stopped. The voice cut through the chamber, sharp, disbelieving, unable to disguise the fracture beneath it. An older Alpha leaned forward, hands pressed against the table, his expression tight. They all stopped. Silence followed. Heavy. Uncomfortable. "That is not possible," another said, quieter but no less firm. "Instinct does not fail like that." It didn't fail. A third voice, colder, measured. "It changed." The word lingered. Changed. At the head of the chamber, the eldest among them remained still, watching, listening, calculating. "And the king?" he asked finally. The room shifted. Subtly, but noticeably. He broke formation, came the response. Left the arena before the ritual concluded. A pause. Then, he pursued something. Something. Not someone. That alone was enough to fracture the illusion of control. "That is a direct violation of arena law," another Alpha said, sharper now. "The ritual binds all present, even him." And yet he left. The words settled like a weight no one could ignore, because there was only one explanation for that. Something had overridden the law. Something had overridden him. The eldest Alpha leaned back slightly, his gaze narrowing. "Describe it." The room hesitated. Not because they didn't know, but because saying it aloud made it real. There was a scent, one finally admitted. A shift. Subtle. Dangerous. Not prey, he added quickly. Not threat. Something else. "What kind of scent stops an Alpha mid-instinct?" another demanded. No one answered immediately, because they all knew. They just didn't want to be the first to say it. The silence stretched, until a bond scent. The words landed quietly, but their impact was anything but. No. Immediate. Sharp. Dismissive. "That is not possible. Bonds do not manifest like that. Not at that scale." This one did. The room fell still again. "Not just one Alpha," the speaker continued, slower now, more deliberate. "All of them." A ripple of unease moved through the chamber. Because that changed everything. The eldest Alpha's expression darkened slightly. "Legends," he said. A single word. But it shifted the room. "You cannot be suggesting." "I am not suggesting anything," the elder interrupted calmly. "I am stating that there are records." "Stories," someone corrected. "Records," he repeated. A pause. Then, "of a scent that does not bind one Alpha, but disrupts all." Silence. Again. But this time, it was heavier. "A myth," another Alpha said, though there was less certainty in it now. "A cautionary tale." "About what?" someone asked. The elder's gaze sharpened. "Control." The word settled into the room like something alive. "They called her a bond breaker," he continued. "A female whose presence overrides instinct itself. Not by force, but by something deeper." Recognition. "Impossible," one muttered. "Dangerous," another corrected. And that was the truth they could not ignore. Because if it was real, if she was real, then the entire structure of their world, their power, their control, was no longer stable. "Where is she?" someone demanded. Another pause. "No one knows." The tension snapped tighter. "And the king?" This time, no one answered immediately, because the answer was worse. "He's looking." Far from the chamber, far from stone and power and controlled voices, Lyra stood at the edge of something she no longer understood. The forest had not changed. The trees still stood. The air still moved. The world still looked the same. But she didn't. Not anymore. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled them back from the stream, water dripping between her fingers. She stared at her reflection, distorted by the current, fractured into pieces that didn't quite align. That's not possible. Her thoughts looped, over and over, trying to make sense of something that refused to be understood. My wolf stopped the entire arena for you. The words hadn't left her. They lingered, echoed, pressed against her thoughts until there was no space left for anything else. No, she whispered to herself, shaking her head once, sharply. No, that's not. A branch snapped behind her. Lyra spun, her heart leaping into her throat. But it wasn't him. Relief came first. Sharp, immediate. Then confusion. Because the figure that stepped into the clearing was not what she expected. You shouldn't be out here alone. The voice was calm, measured, but unfamiliar. Lyra took a step back instinctively, her body tensing as the stranger moved closer into the light. He wasn't an alpha, not fully, but he wasn't ordinary either. His presence lacked the overwhelming force of dominance, but it carried something else, something quieter, something observant. I'm not alone, Lyra said quickly, too quickly. His brow lifted slightly. Then where is he? Her breath caught.
He.
The assumption,
The certainty.
Lyra didn't answer. Because she didn't know how to. And that was the problem. The stranger studied her for a moment longer. Not aggressively. Not threateningly. Assessing. You don't understand what you are, he said finally. Her chest tightened. I'm not anything, she replied, the words sharper than she intended. I'm just wrong. The interruption was quiet, but it cut deeper than anything else. Lyra froze. Because part of her, a part she had spent her entire life ignoring, recognized it. The stranger exhaled slowly, as if weighing his next words carefully. They'll come for you, he said. Not just him. Her pulse spiked.
They.
His gaze didn't waver. All of them. The clearing felt smaller, the air heavier. Lyra shook her head again, stepping back, trying to create distance from something she couldn't outrun.
No.
No, I didn't ask for this. I didn't do anything. I know. That was what made it worse. They'll want to control it, he continued. Or destroy it. Her stomach dropped. Why are you telling me this? She demanded. A pause. Then, because someone has to. The words didn't comfort her. They confirmed everything she didn't want to believe. Because now, there was no escaping it. She wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't safe. And whatever she was, whatever had caused an entire arena of alphas to stop, had just turned her into something the entire kingdom would hunt. Or protect. Lyra's breath came uneven, her thoughts racing, her instincts screaming at her to run, to hide, to disappear. But there was nowhere left to go. Because somewhere out there, he was looking for her. And now, he wasn't the only one who wanted her. The shift from rumor to hunt happened quietly, not with a declaration, not with a single command echoing across the kingdom, but with decisions, small ones, made in different places, by different men, for different reasons. And yet, all leading to the same outcome. Her. By nightfall, the forests were no longer empty. They breathed. Not with wind, but with movement. Eyes in the dark. Footsteps where there should have been none. Scent trails picked apart, followed, abandoned, then followed again. Alphas did not need maps. They did not need directions. They needed instinct. And instinct had already chosen a direction. Spread out. The voice was low, controlled, but edged with something sharper beneath. 3 figures stood at the edge of the forest line, their silhouettes barely visible beneath the fading light. One stepped forward, inhaling slowly, deliberately, his chest expanding as if the air itself carried meaning. It's faint, he muttered. Not faint enough, another replied. A pause. Then, she's real. The words settled between them. Heavy. Final. Because that was the moment speculation ended. And pursuit began. She stopped them. The first alpha said, quieter now. All of them. A flicker of something crossed his expression. Not fear. Not entirely. Something closer to a fascination. Imagine what that means. The second alpha didn't answer immediately. His gaze shifted deeper into the forest. Calculating. It means control, he said finally. Over instinct. Over dominance. Over everything we are. The third alpha exhaled slowly. And whoever has her holds that power. Silence followed. But it wasn't uncertain. It was decided. Find her. Elsewhere, far from the edges of the forest, far from whispered strategies and quiet hunts, the decision was not quiet. It was witnessed. The great hall of the arena had never felt so tense. Even empty, it carried the echo of what had happened. That impossible silence, that break in instinct, that moment the entire structure of power had faltered. And now, he stood at its center, unmoving, the Alpha King. The torches burned lower now, their flames steady, controlled, casting long shadows across the stone floor that still held the memory of the night before. He hadn't returned to the council, hadn't answered their questions, hadn't justified his actions. He didn't need to.
But now,
they had come to him. You broke the ritual. The accusation came first.
sharp, direct.
Unfiltered. He didn't turn. You abandoned the arena, another added. You disrupted a convergence that has not occurred in decades. Still, no response. A third voice, colder now, more deliberate. You chased a servant. That earned a reaction. Not visible, not obvious.
But there.
A shift.
Small.
Controlled. She is not a servant. The words were quiet, measured, but they landed with more force than anything else spoken in that room. Silence followed, because now, this was no longer speculation. It was confirmation. You're certain? One of them asked, slower now. His gaze lifted slightly, not toward them, toward something else. I don't need certainty. A pause. My wolf has already decided. The room stilled. Because that was more dangerous than anything else he could have said. Instinct. Unchallenged. Uncontrolled. You would let instinct override law? Another demanded. This time, he turned. Slowly. And when his gaze met theirs, the weight of it was undeniable. This is not instinct, he said.
A beat.
It is recognition. No one spoke. Because no one had an answer for that. And what do you intend to do? The eldest finally asked. The question hung in the air, heavy, loaded. The Alpha King didn't hesitate. I will find her. No uncertainty, no hesitation, no room for negotiation. And when you do, someone pressed. A pause, just long enough to matter. Then I will decide what comes next. The implications settled like something dangerous, because if he found her first, no one else would get the chance. And that was unacceptable. The tension in the room shifted, not open defiance.
Not yet.
But something close. Because power, once threatened, does not remain still. And now, every alpha in that room understood one thing. This was no longer about a disturbance. It was about control. And none of them were willing to lose it. Back in the forest, Lyra was running again. But this time, it was different. Before, she had been running from something she didn't understand. Now, she was running from something she did. Her breath came sharp, uneven, her body already exhausted from hours of movement, her thoughts fractured, struggling to stay ahead of the reality closing in around her. They'll come for you. The words echoed in her mind, over and over, relentless. Not just him. All of them. Her chest tightened. Her pace faltered, just for a second. Then she pushed forward again. You can still disappear. You've done it before. You know how. But even as the thought formed, something inside her rejected it. Because this wasn't the same. Before, she had been invisible, ignored, unnoticed. Now, she had been seen. And once something is seen, it cannot be unseen. A branch caught her arm as she pushed through the undergrowth, tearing fabric, leaving a thin line of stinging pain across her skin. She didn't stop, didn't slow, because the forest was changing. Not physically, but in the way it felt. Less empty, more aware, watching. Her instinct sharpened, her senses stretched outward. And then, she felt it. Not one presence. Multiple. Closing in. Her breath hitched.
No. No, no.
They're here. Her pace broke.
Turned.
Shifted direction without thought, without plan, guided only by the desperate need to stay ahead of something she could no longer outrun. Because now, it wasn't just one. It was many. Different scents, different movements, different intentions. But all leading to her. Her chest tightened. Her thoughts fractured. Her body pushed harder, faster. But it wasn't enough. Because no matter where she turned, they were already there. And in that moment, as the truth settled in fully, as the weight of it pressed down on her from all sides, Lyra finally understood. Her life, the one she had known, the one where she could hide, where she could disappear, where she could survive by being nothing,
was gone. Completely.
And this time, there would be nowhere left to hide. The forest no longer felt like a place. It felt like a boundary. Something had shifted, not just in the world around her, but in the space between what she had been and what she was becoming. Lyra slowed, not because she was safe, not because the danger had passed, but because running had stopped working. Her breath came uneven, her chest rising and falling too fast, her body trembling under the weight of exhaustion and something far heavier, realization. They weren't searching randomly anymore. They were closing in. Every turn she took, every direction she chose, they adjusted, not guessing, tracking her. A branch snapped somewhere to her left, another to her right,
Subtle.
measured, too coordinated to ignore. Lyra stopped. This time, on purpose. Her body resisted at first, instinct screaming at her to keep moving, to keep fighting, to keep pretending escape was still possible. But something deeper silenced it.
Because she understood now.
Running would only delay the inevitable, not stop it. Slowly, she turned. The forest held its breath with her. Shadows shifted between the trees, not rushing, not attacking, waiting. And then, he stepped forward. Not from the front, not from where she expected. From the space between. As if he had always been there. Watching. The Alpha King. Moonlight caught along the sharp line of his jaw, his shoulders, the controlled rise and fall of his chest. He looked the same.
Calm. Composed.
Unshaken. But something beneath that control had changed. Lyra felt it immediately. Not the overwhelming force from before. Something deeper. Something quieter. Something chosen. Her pulse quickened. Not from fear. Not entirely. From recognition. The others stayed back. She could feel them.
Hear them.
Sense them in the edges of the forest. Watching. Waiting. But none of them stepped forward. Because this wasn't theirs. This belonged to him. And to her. The space between them stretched. Charged. No longer predator and prey. Something else. Lyra lifted her chin slightly. A small movement, but deliberate. I'm not running anymore. Her voice was quieter than she intended,
But steady.
it didn't echo with fear. It held something new. Decision. His gaze didn't waver. I know. 2 words.
Simple.
But they landed with weight. Because he had felt it too. That shift. That change. Silence followed. Not empty.
Full.
Heavy with everything neither of them had said yet. Lyra's hands trembled slightly at her sides. She didn't hide it, didn't step back, didn't break eye contact. You need to call them off, she said. A glance brief, sharp, toward the shadows beyond him. His expression didn't change. They won't come closer. Because of you? A pause.
No, he said.
Her breath caught. Because of you. The words settled between them. Quiet. Unavoidable. Lyra shook her head slightly, a breath escaping her lips as disbelief tried, again, to take hold. That doesn't make sense. He stepped closer.
Slowly.
But not cautiously.
Certain.
It does, he said. Her pulse stuttered. No, it doesn't, she replied, stronger now, frustration breaking through the confusion. You don't stop an entire arena because of one person. You don't. I didn't. The interruption was immediate. Sharp. Final. Her words stopped. Because something in his tone, something deeper than control, had surfaced. My wolf did. The air shifted. And your wolf, he continued, quieter now, stepping closer again, answered. Lyra froze. Her breath caught in her throat. No, she whispered. But it wasn't denial anymore. It was fear. Because something inside her, something she had spent her entire life ignoring, was beginning to respond. I don't have. You do. His voice dropped. Lower. Closer. Or you wouldn't have stopped them. Her chest tightened. Her thoughts spiraled, searching for something, anything, that could ground her in reality. I didn't do anything. You existed. The words landed heavier than anything else he had said. And for the first time, Lyra didn't have an answer. Because, deep down, she knew it was true. Something about her, something she didn't understand, had changed everything. The silence stretched. Then, he closed the distance. Fully. No space left between them now. Lyra felt it instantly.
The shift.
The same one from before, but stronger. Clearer. Not chaotic. Aligned. Her breath hitched. Her body tensed, not to pull away, but to hold steady against something that threatened to unravel her completely. His gaze dropped slightly. Not away,
but down.
To her. To the space between them. To something unseen, but undeniable. This is an instinct, he said again, quieter now. Then what is it? She asked. The question broke something open. Not in the world. In him. Because for the first time, he hesitated. Not long, but enough. Enough to matter. Enough to show that even he did not fully understand it. But he felt it, just as strongly as she did. It's truth, he said finally. Her breath trembled. What truth? His gaze lifted again, meeting hers, holding it. That what we are taught, he said slowly, isn't always what we are. The words sank deep, because they didn't just apply to him. They applied to her. To everything. To the life she had lived. Invisible, unseen, nothing. And yet, one moment, one shift, and the entire world had stopped for her. Her chest tightened. This doesn't give you the right to choose for me, she said. It wasn't defiance. It was fear trying to become control. Something she could hold on to. He didn't argue. Didn't interrupt. Just watched her. Studied her. And then, very slowly, he stepped back. The distance returned. Small, but significant. A choice. I'm not choosing for you, he said. A pause. I'm choosing for myself. Her breath caught. Because that was different. That was dangerous in a way she hadn't expected. Because instinct could be fought. But choice. Choice meant intention. His jaw tightened slightly, the control returning, settling, reforming. I could force this, he said quietly. The words sent a chill through her. Instinct would allow it. Her pulse spiked. But I won't. Silence. Because that changed everything. He exhaled slowly, as if releasing something he had been holding back. I choose you. The words were simple, but they carried something far more powerful than instinct. Decision. Final. Unshakable. Lyra's breath broke. Because this time, it wasn't something happening to her. It was something being given to her. And that terrified her more than anything else. Because now, the power wasn't just his. It was hers too. The force shifted, the presence of the others tightening slightly at the edges. They felt it. That decision. That change. And it unsettled them. Because instinct could be predicted. Controlled. But choice. Choice was unpredictable. Dangerous. Lyra took a step back. Her mind racing, her heart unsteady, her world reshaping itself around something she couldn't undo. You don't understand what that means, she whispered. His gaze didn't soften. I do. A pause. It means everything changes. Her chest tightened. Because he was right. And that was the problem. Because if he had followed instinct, this would have been simple, predictable, containable, but he hadn't. He had chosen. And that made her something far more dangerous to. The arena does not immediately understand what it has just witnessed. For a moment, there is only silence. Not the kind of silence that follows peace, but the kind that follows rupture. A deep, trembling stillness that spreads through thousands of bodies at once, as if the entire structure itself is holding its breath, unsure whether it is still safe to exist. High above, fractured light flickers across shattered stone and scorched markings embedded into the arena floor. Below, the crowd remains frozen, eyes wide, mouths open. No cheers, no screams, only the echo of what just happened, still hanging in the air like smoke that refuses to dissipate. And at the center of it all, her. She stands where the incident ended, not moving, not speaking. Her chest rises slowly, unevenly, like she is still trying to understand whether she is alive or simply delayed death. Her fingers tremble once, then still. A single drop of dust slides down her cheek, like a tear she did not authorize. And yet, she does not fall. She does not break. She remains upright in a world that just tried to erase her. The guards begin to move again. Slowly at first. Uncertain. Then faster. Like the illusion of control is something they can still recover if they act quickly enough. Boots scrape against broken stone. Metal shifts. Commands are whispered, then sharpened, then barked. But none of it reaches her clearly. Because something else is happening now. Something more dangerous than chaos. Recognition. From the upper tiers of the arena, noble figures lean forward. Not in fear. Not in shock. But in calculation. Their eyes do not look at the destruction. They look at her, as if she is no longer a participant in what happened, but the cause. The variable that changed everything. And somewhere among them, a decision is already being made. Quiet. Invisible. Irrevocable. She finally exhales. And it is in that breath that everything shifts. Because the moment she recovers herself, the world realizes she survived. Not barely. Not accidentally. But fully. And survival like that is never forgiven. The arena incident does not escalate further. It settles. But not into peace. Into containment. Like a wound temporarily bound by force rather than healed. Medical teams rush in, but not toward her. Toward the fractured perimeter. Toward damage control. Toward restoring the illusion that things are still under command. Because no one wants to acknowledge the truth forming beneath the surface. Something has changed. Irreversibly. She takes one step back. Then another. Not fleeing. Not retreating. Just repositioning herself inside a world that suddenly feels unfamiliar. And that is when she feels it
Eyes.
Everywhere. Not just watching. Fixating. Before, she was invisible. A background presence. A ghost no one needed to name.
But now,
She is being seen. Fully.
completely.
Violently. And visibility, she realizes, is not freedom. It is exposure. A voice in the distance calls her designation. It sounds official. Detached. But even the speaker hesitates halfway through the syllables, as if the name itself no longer fits what stands before them. No response comes from her. Not because she refuses, but because she understands something deeper now. Names are how the world cages what it cannot explain. And she is no longer small enough to fit inside one. A ripple moves through the crowd. Not physical. Psychological. A collective recalibration. People who once ignored her now lean forward. People who once dismissed her now whisper. People who once felt safe being above her now wonder. What exactly is she? And worse, what will she become? Because fear is no longer the only emotion circulating the arena. Something else is rising beneath it.
Desire. Curiosity.
Obsession. The dangerous kind. The kind that does not stay contained. The kind that follows. The kind that hunts. She senses it before she sees it. A shift in pressure behind her. Not hostile. Not immediate. But deliberate. Measured. Controlled. Like someone has just stepped into the space behind her without announcing themselves, and expects her to notice. She turns.
Slowly.
And sees them. Not the chaos. Not the guards. Not the court. But him. Standing at the far edge of the fractured platform, partially shadowed by broken architecture and dim light fractures, he does not move like the others. He does not rush. He does not react. He simply observes, as if everything that just happened was never unexpected, as if he had already accounted for it, as if she was never an anomaly, but a confirmation. His gaze does not search her. It lands on her.
Cleanly. Precisely.
Like a blade finding its mark without hesitation. And, in that moment, the noise of the arena fades again. Not physically, but psychologically. Everything collapses inward until only 2 points remain. Him. And her. Her breathing slows. Not in fear. Not in relief. But in recognition of something she cannot yet name. Because there is no confusion in his eyes. No uncertainty. No surprise. Only certainty. The kind that does not question what something is. Only what it will become. He begins to walk. Not toward her aggressively. Not cautiously. But inevitably. Like gravity deciding to resume its influence. Each step measured. Each pause intentional. Each movement rewriting the space between them. The guards do not stop him. They do not even try. Because something about his presence convinces them. Instinctively, that interference would be a mistake they would not survive long enough to regret. She does not move away. She does not approach.
She simply stands.
And for the first time since the incident began, she is no longer reacting to the world. The world is reacting to her. He stops at a distance that is neither close nor far. Just enough to speak without raising his voice. Just enough to ensure she hears him alone, even in a place full of thousands. And when he speaks, the entire arena feels it anyway. Not the sound, but the weight of it. You see it now, he says quietly. Not a question. A statement. As if this moment was always inevitable. She does not answer, but something inside her tightens. Because she does see it. Not clearly. Not fully. But enough to understand that nothing about her life before this moment was ever stable. It was only delayed consequence. He tilts his head slightly, as if studying a truth finally revealed in its natural form. Then, a pause. A silence that stretches just long enough to become unbearable. And then he continues. The arena is still trying to recover behind them. Orders are still being shouted. Systems are still stabilizing. But none of it matters here. Because this moment is no longer part of the event. It is something beyond it. Something beginning. He takes one final step forward. Close enough now that she can see the detail in his expression. Not warmth. Not hostility. But understanding.
Deep.
ancient,
certain,
and then he says it,
softly, clearly.
as if speaking directly into the place where her identity used to be. You were never meant to be hidden. A pause. The world holds still again. Even the air feels suspended. Then, you were meant to be found. And, in that instant, something inside the arena changes again. Not loudly, not visibly,
But permanently.
because every person who heard it understood one thing without needing explanation. This was not an ending. It was an announcement. And far above them, in the fractured silence that follows, something begins to shift again. Not in the arena, but in her. As if those words did not land on her. They activated her. And somewhere in the distance, unseen, unspoken, unacknowledged, the real story finally begins to move.